I'm Amelie, and Amalthea is behind me, being all cute. And these are my pajamas. And today I'm doing something a little bit different. I have a movie review for you guys because I watched it and I was like, wow, I have to talk about this. And I'm not going to be showing any footage of this movie just to avoid potential copyright issues, and also because my editing skills are not up to par. And so I wanted to do this the simple way. So enjoy my face. And so the movie that I'm talking about today is called Good Boy, and it's about a guy in a dog suit. So this is a Norwegian film that came out in 2022, and it's free on Tubi, and I think it's also on Hulu. But yeah, I watched it on Tubi. I really like Tubi because I like to go on there and just see what weird crap I can find. And I have spent many a night staying up far later than I should watching like four movies that I saw on Tubi and was like, whoa, that looks weird. I want to watch that. Oh, and I'm not sponsored by Tubi, by the way. Um, but yeah, two movies on Tubi can be kind of hit or miss. Like sometimes you find some great stuff on there, and sometimes you find really boring stuff on there. Sometimes you find really bad stuff on there. It just kind of depends. Um, so this movie I thought was pretty good. I enjoyed watching it, and I first heard about it. I saw it in my suggestions on YouTube, and it said that there was a guy who was acting like a dog in a dog suit, and I was like, well, I have to watch that. And so immediately I watched it while I was at work today, and I was like, oh, well, now I have to talk about it. So we're here, and so the movie begins with Christian Iverson, who is the heir of a multi-million-dollar empire that his parents left behind. So he's rich, doesn't have to work, and he lives with Frank, who is a man in a dog suit who acts like a dog. And so he goes on Tinder and he meets this woman named Sigrid, and he invites her over to his house. They have a first date, and then she goes over to his house, and she ends up staying the night there. Everything's great, and then the next morning she wakes up and she hears noises, and she looks down and she sees this man in a dog suit at the foot of the bed, like panting and stuff. And so she nopes out of there real quick, and then she's talking to her roommate, whose name is Aurora, and she's like, whoa, wait, you went on a date with this famous millionaire? And she's like, yeah, but he lives with this guy in a dog suit, which is weird. I don't really know if I should go on another date with him. And she's like, wait a minute, so this guy's perfect in like literally every way except he has a roommate who has this weird hobby. Like, you're really gonna let that get in the way of dating this amazing guy? So she does some research on pet play and is like, okay, so this might be just like a thing that his roommate likes to do. So I guess I'll try to be open minded and I'll go back. So she goes on another date with him. She meets Frank, and basically, Christian explains to Sigrid, like, oh, he's been my friend since we were kids. He's had kind of a rough childhood. He doesn't really have anybody except me, so I have to be there for him. And like, this is just a thing that he likes to do. And so I try to like deal with it and be okay with it. So she's like, oh, okay, that's cool. And so then he ends up asking her if she wants to go on a weekend trip with him to this cabin that his family had. And so she's like, yeah. So they go to the cabin, and they bring Frank with them. And then he says, "Hey, let's have a phone-free weekend while we're up here in nature." Um, so she reluctantly agrees to hand over her phone, and at that point, I was like, "Oh no." So then, so she gives him her phone, and then one night they're getting drunk, and Christian leaves the room for a minute. And then Frank comes over to her. He pulls up the mask and he's like, "Hey, you got to get me out of here. This guy's a psycho, okay?" And um, and so the next day she's like, "Hey, Christian, can I take Frank out for a walk, like alone?" And he's kind of like, "Why?" But then he lets them do that. And so they're walking around in the woods, and he's like telling her like, "Hey, have you thought of a plan to get me out of here yet?" And so they kind of talk about like what they should do to escape Christian's clutches. So then she decides to take a knife from the kitchen and hide it under her pillow. And I'm like, "Don't hide it under the pillow. Hide it in the mattress, under the mattress, like anything besides under the pillow. This isn't gonna work." So she hides the knife under the pillow, and then Christian comes in and he's like, "Hey, I'm gonna change the sheets." And she's like, "Oh no, I can do that. I'll change the sheets." And he's like, "No, I'll do it." And she's like, "No, I'll do it. Like let me change the sheets because you work so hard and like you've been cooking for me and stuff. So like please let me change the sheets." So I think he probably knew what was going on, but he lets her change the sheets, and she keeps the knife under the pillow. And so then, all of a sudden, he like brings her out of the room and he sits her down in a chair and he's like, "You know why you're here, don't you?" And she's like, "No." And he's like, "Liar." And so basically, he must have either bugged Frank's dog suit or something like that because he heard their conversations out in the woods. And then he also found the knife, of course. And then he shows her Frank, who is currently in a cage. And he's also got like a gag and like a collar on, and it's apparent that he has been tortured because Christian says like, "Oh, even if I didn't record this, I would have known anyway because Frank told me everything." And then this is where I was kind of disappointed in the main character because he like Christian reaches his arm in there and he's like, "Okay, Frank, come on out. It's her turn now." And then Frank bites him and he's like rolling around on the floor. And I was thinking like this is the point where you stab him or hit him over the head with something heavy or something like that, but she does neither of those things. And instead she runs out and leaves Frank behind. And I was like, "You go back for Frank right now. You go back for him right now." And then she like does this really weird thing where she like lays on the ground in the woods and like just stays there for a little bit. And then they go back like they show inside the house again, and Christian's uh he's like upset that Sigrid got out. And so then Frank, I can't remember exactly what he said. I think he said like, "I'm sorry" or something like that, and Christian's like, "Did you just speak English to me?" And he's like, "I think we need to go back out to the barn." And Frank's like, "No, no, not the barn, anything but that." So I'm assuming that the barn is where Frank might have been conditioned into being a dog in the first place. Because that's basically what happens when they're back in the barn. Like, he puts Frank in a cage, and he's like hitting the cage with a baseball bat, and he's like, "Bark for me! Bark for me!" He also like tortures Frank. There was this torture scene that made me feel really uncomfortable where he like waterboards Frank and like suffocates him almost to the point of passing out, and then like removes the plastic bag and then puts it back on. And then he also like hits him and stuff. It made me feel really sad. And then Sigrid decides to go back in finally, and Christian has his back to her, and she hits him over the head with the branch, and it doesn't knock him out, but again, it incapacitates him where he's laying on the floor. And again, I'm like, this is the point where you stab him or hit him again or something like that. But no, she just leaves him there, kind of dazed, and then she's like, come on, Frank, get up, let's go. And then, of course, naturally, Christian regains himself and he hits Sigrid over the head and knocks her out. And then and there's a little time jump where they show Christian making food. And then, like at the beginning of the movie, he always gave Frank human food, like steak and like vegetables and really good stuff. But then they show him pouring dog food into a dog dish. And then they show Frank in the small cage. And he gives Frank the dog food. And then he brings another bowl of dog food. They show Sigrid. She's locked in the barn and she's also in a dog suit. And he gives her a bowl of dog food. And then they show him preparing a third dog dish. And he sets it on the floor. And a baby crawls out towards the bowl, also wearing a dog suit. And that's how the film ends. Yeah. So, as sad as that ending made me, because I love babies, like my dream job is to be a mom and I just love babies. And so, as sad as the ending made me, it was a really good movie. I enjoyed it. And if you like horror movies that are upsetting, I recommend it. um, so, the things I liked about it. So, the acting is really good, I thought. And the actress who played Frank, especially, or the actor who played Frank, especially, was really good. Because, like, during the torture scene when he was, like, sobbing and, like, screaming and stuff, like, I felt for him. I was like, wow, poor guy. And then Sigrid, also, the actress who played her, also did a really good job of looking distressed and stuff like that. Although she was very suspicious, and I mean, I guess some people just are, where like their emotions show on their face, because whenever she tries to lie to Christian, being like, no, I wasn't trying to escape, or I wasn't trying to hide a knife or anything like that, like, you can tell that she's lying, and I'm like, he's not gonna believe you. I wouldn't believe you, and I'm not even a psychopath. But I mean, in real life, some people are just like that. And then some of the issues that I had with the movie is like the dumb decisions that Sigrid made of not hitting him again and again when she had the opportunities to do that. And then, like, why didn't she move the knife when, like, because Christian didn't want her to change the sheets, and if I was there, I'd be like, he probably knows I'm trying to hide something in here. So I would have moved the knife, like, I would have put it inside the mattress or at the bottom of the mattress or even, like, in a drawer in the bedroom or something like that, instead of just leaving it under the pillow where Christian probably knew it was there. Well, he definitely knew it was there because he got it. And then, um, like, this movie left me with a lot of unanswered questions. Like, I want to know how long this had been going on, like how long Christian and Frank had been living together. And also, why did he turn Frank into a dog? Because it said at like at the beginning of the movie that his parents were both dead. And I kind of wondered too if he killed his parents, but that's another one that they never specify. And so why did he turn Frank into a dog if he wanted companionship because his parents died? Like, that would make sense, but then why turn him into a dog because of that? And he also tells Sigrid that him and Frank had been friends since they were kids, and I wonder if that's true. Or if, like, Frank is just a guy that he found later on and decided to keep him captive. And then at the end, like I kind of wonder, this is really disturbing, but I wonder whose baby that was because because Christian at the beginning when it's just him and Sigrid, or when it's just Frank like as the dog, he tells her like he's not a person acting like a dog, like he's a dog. And so he seems to really think that Frank is a dog. And um so I wonder if he thinks that Sigrid is also a dog. Did he breed them? Like, is the baby Frank and Sigrid's, or is it Sigrid and Christian's? I kind of wondered that. Um, and then um, the preferred twist is that me and my boyfriend, the professor, we were talking about this earlier today, and he doesn't like horror movies, but I watched it and then I talked to him about it, and he said that it would have been cooler if the twist was that instead of Christian brainwashing Frank to be his dog, it would have been cooler if Frank was brainwashing Christian to be his owner. And I think that's really cool too, because we've seen movies where someone tries to turn someone else into an animal, like Tusk, um, things like that. But I've never seen a movie where a human who wants to be an animal brainwashes someone into being their owner. And so I think that would be neat if that was what was going on instead. And then, oh yeah, something else in the unanswered questions is that I kind of wondered if he intended on turning her into a dog from the beginning, because I wondered like if things had like gone perfect, if Frank had never warned her, if um like if she had never tried to get them out, and if they just had like a normal relationship, would it just have kept going on normally? Or did he take this trip to the cabin to like turn her into a dog? Like, is that what that was supposed to be? Um, I kind of wonder about that. Like, did he just want a normal girlfriend, or did he want a girl dog? And so, yes, if you like horror films, especially disturbing horror films, I would definitely check this one out. Show it to your friends, freak them out, because I'm probably going to do that. Um, and yeah, I hope you enjoyed this movie review. I hope just looking at my face wasn't too boring. And yeah, bye bye.